Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowagoan.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talk about the movies and TV that they loved before the first date. And this time I was made to watch Dick.
Yay! We're going to talk about Dick today. Woohoo! Yeah, let's get all the innuendo out of the way. But no, because there's a lot
this movie is
in there.
Yeah, they are surprisingly restrained with the amount of times that they make dick jokes, but also there's like 100 dick jokes.
Yes. Well, yeah, it could have been twice as many.
Easily.
So, yeah. So if you have not heard of this before, well, first of all, you're missing out. Like, I've seen this probably 5 times and I still was snickering the whole time because it's just silly and delightful. But this is essentially, so the last episode where I brought the movie, we talked about All the President's Men. This is essentially All the President's Men, but with zero reverence for its subject. And if Deep Throat were a pair of teenage girls.
Yeah, and it's
basically
kind of it's like sometimes it's a direct parody of All the President's Men.
There are a lot,
but,
which is fantastic.
They basically sprinkled it in. They were like, okay, now here's the time for this gag.
Yes.
Here's the time for this gag. But yeah, 60% of it is not, but like 40% of it is pretty good parody.
Yeah, I would be interested to watch this with someone who had never seen All the President's Men and see what they found funny versus, I mean, I got far too many of the references because I'm a big old nerd and have seen it umpteen times. But yeah, so essentially this is telling the story of the Watergate investigation through the eyes of 2 teenage girls. They're 15. They live in D.C. and they end up visiting the White House and becoming friendly, sort of, with President Nixon. And from then on, it's a little bit like Forrest Gump, a little bit. I think Zelig is the movie that Forrest Gump was compared to, which I've never seen, but they keep showing up at various important historical periods. A little bit like The Butler, in the sense that a fictional character provokes these historical figures to do various things.
Yeah.
You know, and Betsy and Arlene, Betsy is played by Kirsten Dunst and Arlene is played by Michelle Williams, do not have any intention of influencing him in the way that they do. They say, oh, we think you should stop the war because I don't want my brother to die. And then, coincidentally, the war now, is it coincidence? We don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, although some things aren't coincidence, like they teach him the peace sign.
Yeah.
And then he does the peace sign.
That was pretty.
The photo of him getting on the helicopter.
That was pretty. Yeah. That was pretty nice.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the kind of thing where I also would love to watch this with my parents who were very much paying attention when all this happened. So how many are there? How many nods are there to things that we didn't get at all? Like this is different generations are going to react to this differently.
Yeah.
So various things happen. Betsy and Arlene have information on Nixon and his merry men, and they learn that he's kind of a jerk, and they want to tell somebody about it. And since Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein are investigating the Post, they say, "Oh, let's call these guys," and they end up giving them important information. They don't really realize that they are. They mostly want to tell them that Dick is a bad guy, and Woodward and Bernstein are, of course, horrified that they're getting information from 2 teenage girls, and they say, "We are never going to tell anybody that you helped us out." And the girls say, "Oh, for our protection." No. For ours, it's really,
too embarrassing.
Yes. And it really, I think, tweaks Woodward and Bernstein about their self-importance, shall we say, really takes them down a peg. And there are, particularly in the scenes with them, there are a lot of call outs to All the President's Men. Did we talk about this on the episode last time when they're observing each other write and there's these cut shots back and forth of them watching each other? That is almost exactly
they do
here.
They've got the newsroom set exactly
complete with the bicycle wheel by Bernstein's desk.
And they definitely they do the back and forth shot, reverse shot stuff. But of course it's one of them is Will Ferrell and one of them is Bruce McCullough. So
Yes.
Bruce McCullough is doing his his head tilted, like curious cat, like
There's
look that he does.
Yeah. This has major Kids in the Hall vibes, not only because of Bruce McCullough, but because of another 20% of Kids in the Hall. Dave Foley plays H.R. Haldeman. And if you don't know who that is, it's fine. He was one of the jerks in the Nixon White House. Yeah. That's really all you know. Yeah, this is not, you're not going to, if you need to study up on Watergate, this is not the movie to watch because it name checks a lot of things, but this is not necessarily fact-based. No. Haldeman was the one with the really bad flat top haircut.
Yeah.
So those two are in this, and it's still, we were just talking about Kids in the Hall the other day. I think that is a real Gen X comedy phenomenon. I don't think people much younger than us, like elder millennials, as they say, found them funny, and I don't think people much older than Gen X really got it. So that's a thing that Gen X has. And you told me that they're reuniting, doing a special or a tour or something.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
So I'm all about that.
Yeah.
It's funny to see the Kids in the Hall guys show up in other things. At some point later, I hope that we'll talk about the Anne of Green Gables movie, and both Bruce McCullough and Dave Foley are in that too, as these very earnest, Canadian farm boys. And it's hysterical to think you went on about, my pen, you've got my pen. Yeah. And now you're no chicken lady in Anne of Green Gables, though. Yeah, that's the most risque. So we got Kids in the Hall. And then Will Ferrell is playing Bernstein, and he's kind of doing his Will Ferrell thing, but it works, I think. His just being, I don't know how you describe him other than he's being Will Ferrell, like just. But it's a little bit, arrogant, but also he's very self-important, but he's not doing a very good job of keeping up the importance. And it's if Ron Burgundy were trying to be Bob Woodward, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Although I think Ron Burgundy is the least Will Ferrell character that he does,
possibly
in meaning when I think of him and I think of his sort of goofy-ish comedy, like
fair.
He's I don't know, it's hard to explain, but
anyway.
But I mean, it's this movie is really like, I don't know why I didn't see it, because it has so many people in it that I know and would have liked at the time. Yeah. So I don't know why I didn't see it at the time.
Yeah. So I think one of my favorite, there's a lot of character actors in here. The chief among them is Dan Hedaya, who we've talked about before on the podcast. He was playing a dictator in Commando.
Chameleon.
And now he's playing a dictator in this kind of.
He's playing a dictator.
I was reading up about this, and Michelle Williams and Kirsten Dunst, who of course were not born during Watergate and didn't have much reference for Nixon, thought that Dan Hedaya was overdoing it in his Nixon impression. And everyone older on the crew who had been around for this were like, no, that's spot on. And he doesn't really seem to me like he's overdoing it.
No, it's not like the Rich Little level impersonation where his is always felt specific. I mean, Rich Little's Nixon always felt like Dana Carvey's Bush, just a caricature through and through. Whereas, Hedaya, I think, is just, he's got the mannerisms and he's got some of the stuff, but he's not like he's not overdoing it.
You get 55% of the way there, and then and that's good enough. Yeah, I always think that's interesting when actors play fairly recent presidents. Like if you're playing, Washington or Lincoln, like whatever, that's, but anybody from, say, Truman on up, you have to walk a fine line. It's not an impersonation. You're not trying to replace the person, but so you have to do enough. Yeah.
There's some reference for it, and because also since the advent of sketch comedy, shows like Saturday Night Live and all these things, like there are impersonations out there, and because comedians who do impersonations of people are more likely to latch onto one or two things, the mannerisms or vocal tics that they have.
Yeah.
It's easy to slip into an exaggerated impersonation of somebody.
Well, yeah. And after a while, for example, to be George W. Bush, you're not doing George W. Bush. You're doing Will Ferrell doing George W. Bush or, choose a thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I thought that was funny that the two younger people were like, this is too much. He's overdoing it. And everybody was like, no, for real. That's
probably because he was closer to parody than they thought he should be. But Nixon was closer to being a parody of himself.
There are some public figures who, you're a caricature.
Yeah.
You're not a real person. And Trump was that way. And honestly, Clinton sometimes was that way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
Like at the beginning with the short shorts and the McDonald's everywhere. And you're like, are you
playing
trying to be?
All of it. Yeah. It's all.
Yeah. But and I lost my train of thought.
I don't know. Maybe this is just, we can talk about the cast in general because like I said, it's got this cast.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And the other, I was gonna say, in addition to Dan Hedaya, one of the ones that makes me giggle the most is Jim Brewer is playing John Dean, who is very straight laced. And Jim Brewer, I don't know a ton about him, but not straight laced is
Yeah. Jim, just nothing subtle about the Jim Brewer of 1990 X. He was the over the top guy.
Well, and for a movie where pot plays a significant role, Jim Brewer is nowhere near it.
Right.
Just
yeah. This movie has some pretty good small bit parts for people too.
Yeah.
It starts out with French Stewart playing an interviewer.
Yeah, it's in the present day. They're interviewing Woodward and Bernstein, who age has not been kind to them.
The present day of 1999.
Well, sure. Yeah. Sure.
You say the present day. No.
Which, dear God, was 21 years ago.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I'm moving on from that. And they refuse to tell who Woodward and Bernstein, or who Deep Throat was. Sorry,
he kind of tries to trick him. He plays like, I don't think that he exists, and McCullough's like, yes, he does. He's named, and Farrell says, oh, she's just trying to trick you. Stop.
No,
you smell like onions.
It's just cabbage. Apparently, that's a reference to some Kids in the Hall character. I don't know. I missed that.
Oh, it's his little kid. Can I come in your house now and eat some cabbage? You eat an onion for you or whatever, Probably the little kid.
Okay.
The kid that just stands there. I think he's wearing a Zelda hat. My mom dropped me off and, I don't. Watch Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Not a sponsor. We're just fans.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Right.
Yeah. And there's just there is Pizza Place era Ryan Reynolds. Kind of, he's got a little baby fat on him.
He's a little chubby.
He's got a little bit of a double chin. He's not by any means, he's not fat. He's svelte looking through the body, but he hasn't undergone the transformation that he will in a few years.
No, he's not Ryan Reynolds.
Right. Yeah. He's just
a cute guy that you would want to make out with, which is what Betsy does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else?
Let's see. Well, Dave Foley, Harry Shearer as G. Gordon Liddy.
Yeah, he's
good. I don't want to say rest in peace, but he just died recently. So bye-bye.
Yeah,
Gordon.
Yeah, G. Gordon Liddy, not Harry Shearer.
Yeah. No, yes. Rest in peace, Harry Shearer, when he dies. But no, it was Liddy who just died. Anna Gasteyer's in it as Nixon's secretary. And I feel like that was one of the things where only our parents' generation would get whatever references they were making there.
Yeah, because I'm sure she was a bit of a character in the whole thing, I'm sure.
But that was all over my head.
Yeah. My favorite was just for a hot second, Jefferson Darcy shows up.
Yes, I saw that. Yes, as the
again cast in the only thing he ever seems to be cast in is the gigolo type. We need a male, a hunky male to seduce a woman. All right, here you go, Jefferson Darcy.
Yeah, well, I'd let him seduce me. He's attractive.
Sure. Although, he was kind of in that odd transitional period though that I think a lot of attractive men go through where he was starting to get a little age on him.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think there's this weird period for attractive young men who become like attractive older men.
Mm-hmm.
There's that point between, it's like the distinguishing phase where they're going from youthful to distinguished. And sometimes it can be a little bit.
It's like when the gray is coming in and you're like, is that
and the face is filling out a little bit, or the
yeah.
wrinkles are starting to come in, it's like there's probably a point in you can track in like Brad Pitt's career or George Clooney where they're like, they had this moment where they were kind of like, yeah, all right, sure. Yeah. He's still attractive, but they weren't yet this distinguished older.
Well, women aren't allowed even that. So I wouldn't know about that.
I don't know about that. I mean, like the two leads in this who were late teens or early 20s, probably when this was made. Do you think they've both gone on to?
No, I know, but they're both younger than me, and they probably have people telling them, "You're getting a little age on you, sweetie. You gotta, women are not allowed this transition period, let alone aging." But
Although I think it can be done. Like I think Michelle Williams has done that. She went from this like cute teen show person to this very serious actress.
She's matured. She hasn't aged.
I don't know. Have you seen some pictures of her?
Well, she's not yet 40.
Okay, so. But I'm saying like she doesn't look like this cute young thing anymore.
But that's not even.
Although Kirsten Dunst pretty much still does.
So we can talk about Terry Garr, for example, as she looks. I don't know how old she is, but she looks approximately her age.
Yeah,
is in this as
Terry Garr is in this movie.
Arlene's single mother, who is romanced by Jefferson Darcy, and then he was just trying to get into their apartment to plant a bug. That was it.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. That was when Betsy realizes that both of their homes have been bugged, and she runs over to Arlene's, and it's almost what happened in All the President's Men. Runs in there and turns up the music, and then she yells, "We've been bugged!"
Yeah.
Which is defeating the purpose of the,
loud enough for the whole house to hear.
Yes, that's pretty good. Another great character and a character actor in this, Brian Krakow, by which I mean the actor Devin Gummersall, but he will always be Brian Krakow to me because, as far as I'm concerned, he played Brian Krakow in My So-Called Life, which we will be talking about later. And he was some sketchy guy who raped Julie in season 1 of Felicity. But he is so much Brian Krakow in the public imagination that if you go to the Wikipedia page for Dick and you click on Devin Gummersall, it just takes you straight to the My So-Called Life page. Doesn't even mess around with him having a page. It just goes right there. So
all right.
Brian Krakow as a stoner who can't even get it together to escape to Canada when his draft number comes up.
Right.
And hides his pot in the family's container of walnuts.
Yes.
So I guess every time they make anything with walnuts, it gets some pot in there. That seems unwise.
I guess. Yeah.
It seems like you got to keep better track of your supply.
How often do you make stuff with walnuts, I guess?
Well, and then it gets mixed in and it's pain to separate it out unless you want. Yeah. Can you get high if you smoke walnuts too? I don't know.
Probably.
I would.
But like you were saying, how it puts them sort of at these moments of historical significance.
Yeah.
Or has them contributing to it. Yeah, they make Nixon cookies that have the walnuts in it. So, a lot of his strange behavior could be attributed to him being high quite frequently.
Yeah. And they get everybody in the White House hooked on these cookies, which is hilarious. The security guards, when they show up at first, are like, no, go away, little girls. And then after a while, they're like, do you have the cookies? Oh, yeah. I don't know how my experience with pot is limited. Would eating one cookie make you high? This seems...
You're talking to the wrong person for that. I have no idea.
True. Although, as I reminded myself several times, do not, I say this every time, but seriously, this one for sure, do not interrogate it any. Don't question.
Oh, yeah.
Don't question, for example, how Michelle Williams has soft contact lenses in 1973.
Right.
Don't question why they're wearing coats in June, like in DC. Do not. So, yay, everybody got high from eating one brownie. That's fine. I would kind of like to make those. I wonder if I can get a freeze frame of
Hello
the
Dollies.
recipe.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it's out there.
Yeah.
Also, if the indicator is if the movie's any indicator, it's not some crazy secret recipe. because he says it's on the package. I'm assuming he
Oh,
either means the
maybe.
walnuts or the because that's like that's like my experience with my grandmother's German chocolate cake, which I made for you early in our relationship to try and impress you, only to find out
never since.
No, never since. Only to find out that the exact recipe that was our guarded family recipe for a German chocolate cake was just right off the baker's chocolate box.
I'm sure many people have had that realization. Like, you submit it to the Junior League cookbook and then 3 other people have the same recipe. What?
Right. My mother's chocolate chip cookies. Like, that's just right off the Toll House chip bag.
My mother is Mrs. Tollhouse? No. Yeah. So, what did you think of this? So you said you hadn't seen it.
I hadn't.
And I am a little surprised that you hadn't, because it.
Yeah, I had absolutely no idea why I didn't see it, other than it was 1999, and I was just out on my own. I was working in a video store, and I was living a couple hours away from anybody that I knew. And so I went to a lot of current movies, and I rented a lot of crazy older movies. So there's this probably like donut hole of time where movies that weren't compelling enough for me to go to the theaters to see, which was mostly like I went to see, action movies and various stuff. But not a lot of comedies at that time. Yeah. Like I probably have this little hole between like 98 and 99 where I missed out on a lot of movies I would otherwise have watched because they didn't fit into that. I was filling in my education on all these older movies from the 70s and 80s and watching like contemporary action movies in the theaters every week.
Well, and apparently this was not a hit when it was first released. It came out in August 99, and so I might have seen it in the theater. I don't know. But critics liked it, and audiences were like, and then I think since then, as many do, it has come to be beloved.
Oh yeah.
Since then, but I think at the time it was maybe not marketed very well. It is a bit of a hard sell, because if you don't know about Watergate already, you're like, why would I watch that? That's
right. I mean, the pitch is, hey, a bunch of modern comedians and the guy who wrote and directed The Craft are making this sort of parody of a 20-year-old movie. Yeah. And
that your parents love.
Right. And about this almost 30-year-old event. Yeah. And go pay money to watch that, because like nobody in this movie was the star that they would become. Right. Of the like comedic actors, Will Ferrell was not Will Ferrell. Right, like he was just on to Saturday Night Live and all that. And the Kids in the Hall guys have never been marketable stars. Like you couldn't put them.
You got all 5 or nothing.
Right. And, the 2 female leads would go on to be bigger names, but at this point,
Michelle Williams was on Dawson's Creek at the time.
Yeah, and Kirsten Dunst, people would have mainly known her from Interview with a Vampire, and maybe the first Spider-Man movie was out by then. I can't remember.
Virgin Suicides too.
Yeah, probably something around.
But
that,
she wasn't not a star. Yeah. So
there wasn't
it's a bit of a hard sell
in this movie, right? And even Dan Hedaya at the time was, he was an actor from the 80s and early 90s that, like the people would have known. But yeah, there's no.
He's a character actor though, and he's not. Even though I recognize him and I enjoy him, I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, let's go see that new Dan Hedaya joint. Like,
like you could have potentially argued getting a name for Nixon that you could have marketed would have been something. But yeah, it was kind of a movie about stuff from the 70s and a parody of a movie from the 70s filled with people that would have been liked by people who were born around the time that any of this happened and had no frame of reference for it, and really probably little frame of reference for the movie it was sort of parodying. Yeah, so it's a really weird kind of hard sell.
You can see why it was not a smash hit, but it has come to be more popular. Well, you know what's funny though? You say you could have gotten a name actor to play Nixon. What I like is the focus is on the girls, and they're allowed to be girls, not young vixens. Like they're 15, which
Yeah.
when you're 15 feels so grown up. Right. And undoubtedly there are 15-year-olds who are super grown up, who are, you know, whatever, drinking and having sex and working and, you know, either grown up in the sort of gritty sense or grown up in the mature sense. And these girls are neither. But I like that they're allowed to do that. There's a lot of different reviews refer to them as dumb, but they're the kind of dumb that it's okay to be at 15. And I feel like it's very easy to look at the movie and say, oh, they're dumb and like make fun of them for it. But I think they're just, they're not stupid. They're just dumb.
Yeah.
You know?
They're not Romeo and Michelle. Like they're not two basically adult characters they're not Derek Zoolander. They're not like
who should have grown up by now. Yeah.
Right. They're not, you don't go like, how could these people pay bills and make it through life and just get their taxes done and you know, all this stuff. Yeah. They're because they're 15. Yeah. Like it's more like they're naive and they're like you said, dumb in the way that 15-year-olds should be dumb and can be dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than, and they get to, you know, one of them gets a crush on Nixon.
Yes.
And she's already got a crush on Bobby Sherman.
And I don't know anything about Bobby Sherman, but that seems very age appropriate. Nixon, not so much. But I also like, and I assume that Michelle Williams I don't know if she was under 18. So this may have been that they had to do it, but it's absolutely crush. It's not even in her fantasies do they do anything.
Oh yeah.
Like he rides up to her on a beach on a horse and says, "Come with me." And then they do that dance that they do where you hold your hands and swing around and he shows her a sandcastle and that's it. Like that's all that she can imagine in her fantasy is that's the pinnacle of romance for her because she's 15 because she's you know.
Yeah, she was probably 18, 19. She's 40.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah.
So it's a deliberate plot choice then. Yeah. It wasn't like, well, we can't have them kissing because she's 16. It's on purpose, which I appreciate.
Yeah, she imagines him riding on a horse on the beach and, you know.
And he says, "Come with me." And she says, "What about Pat?" And he says, "She understands," which is just... Poor Pat Nixon does not get a very good edit in this.
There's that mention, and then there's one night where she's snoring.
And I think she's got like curlers in her hair and one of those really thick sleeping masks. And he says, "Damn it, Pat, would you stop it?" Which I know you can relate to that, telling your wife to shut up because she snores. Yeah. But yeah, that's it. Poor Pat Nixon, who I think in real life did a lot for talking about breast cancer and mental health. Or was that Betty Ford? I don't know.
I don't remember. I mean, you would think it was Betty Ford.
Betty Ford was alcoholism.
Sure.
Anyway, I think certainly Pat Nixon put up with a lot. So. Oh
yeah, totally.
Rest in peace, Pat. Deserved better than this, but it's not about her. It's about the girls who are dumb and allowed to be dumb. So.
Yeah.
And I say dumb with like, I regard dumb as just sort of a state of life. I'm not saying that someone is stupid.
Yeah.
It's just, you know.
Yeah, I often use that word, and I think some people do, to more or less mean like good fun, like not. It's like they're not stupid. They're just silly and having a good time.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I would call this movie dumb. Like this movie is dumb. Like it's not out to teach anyone history. It's not out to make any kind of statement. It is just dumb fun.
Yeah.
And that they are dumb in that same way. Just like they're there for the ride and they're not the sharpest, but they're also not, I don't know. They're not.
They have good hearts and they know what's right and what's wrong. And they are not going to put up with being treated badly, which, you know, that's the world could do with a little bit more of that. Well, and, you know, you say it's not out to make a statement. The writer and director based this a little bit on some of their own childhood experiences. Somebody involved with the film was at, and when she was a child, she and her family were at the same hotel that Nixon was. And I'm guessing security must have been much less tight then than it is now.
Oh, yeah.
Because she and a friend were able to get close enough to throw ice cubes at Nixon because they were not fans. I'm assuming this was around Watergate, or maybe they just didn't like him full stop from the jump. I don't know.
Yeah.
And there were side effects, is what Wikipedia says. Doesn't tell me any more than that. Yeah. But, and it's interesting to look back and see reactions to Nixon at the time, because I only know him as a historical figure. I think there was an attempt in the 90s to try to rehabilitate his image. There was a period where all I remember is the slogan, he's tan, he's rested, he's ready. I think there was someone talked about him wanting to run for president again, or run for some other office. And yeah. I don't think I'm making this up. But I mean, he was pardoned soon after he left office, and I think there was this attempt to be like, that wasn't that bad, But I certainly grew up with the impression of him as, ugh, that was a stain on the country. But some people, I think at the time, thought he was great and thought he did nothing wrong. And you see with Betsy's parents at the beginning, why are they harassing him? And then at the end, they sort of get it with it, which I think a lot of people took that arc. But there were probably some people who the whole time thought he was innocent.
Yeah,
no reason to persecute him, and just like today.
Yeah, all of this was the murmurings of all of this were out there when he got reelected. Yeah, it wasn't even Watergate. You see the polls of people who were like, Watergate was like fourth or fifth in line of the stuff they were concerned about during that election. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then whatever, a year or two later, he's gone or whatever.
He's gone. Yeah. The tides turn. Well, again, as we said with All the President's Men, a lot of times people take responsibility for their actions, not because it's the right thing to do, but they realize nobody will cover for them. And the reason they realize nobody will cover for them is that the public gets loud about it. So let your elected officials know what you think about things. Even if you think they're on the other side, they'll never listen to me, make them listen.
Yeah, I mean, because there's going to be that day where that senator or whoever asks his staff about the calls that came in that week, and all of a sudden it's 60-40, against this thing, and they're like, and then it's 70-30, and they're like, oh boy. And you hear the stories. I forget the guy, but there was one particular Republican staunch supporter who was sort of the one that flipped everybody, and he was like, I just can't there's too much evidence, yada, and that's sometimes all it takes is for this little tide shift, and then the floodgates open or whatever.
Well, and if you are phone phobic as I am, and also you don't like the idea of people being mean to you, which I also don't like, write a postcard. Because nobody has to open it. The message is right on there. Anyway, we're drifting into civics lessons. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the thing that's always going to happen with quote dumb comedy movies, is there's not a lot to talk about other than, unless we want to go through and recount specific gags, that happen. Yeah. Although if one specific gag, and you laughed at this too, so there is the part like we talked about in All the President's Men where there's no the tension and the threat to Woodward and Bernstein is never really that overt, except for one very manufactured feeling scene where Robert Redford is running down the street and then dramatically turns to face the camera.
It's like dramatic Chipmunk level.
Yeah, to see if anybody's there. Yeah. And no one's there. And they do that same thing with Kirsten Dunst.
Except she's running around in a bathrobe and a nightgown with this ruffled yoke. And,
she turns around. It's just turns around. And and there are moments like that, like I said, where they're directly parodying. I mean, the whole intro scene is very near direct.
Oh, I was hoping you got that. Oh my gosh. The first time I saw this, I cackled. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I about died.
Yeah, with the guys coming in and then the spotters are watching the two girls in the
what I was talking about is the close up of the typewriter.
The very intro. Yes,
down.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because that's in All the President's Men, it opens with all this typing. Yeah. Yeah, and they're not really very good at typing.
No,
so
it said
like Hunt and Peck
197 ? Oh, fudge! And they have to use whiteout, and then she doesn't let it dry, and it's, and it goes,
just that, and then the whole intro, with the taping of the door, stuff like they tape the door, so they can get back in without anyone knowing that they went out to mail this letter to win a Bobby Sherman meet and greet contest. Yeah,
I thought that I remembered that there's mention of the actual security guard in this, and I don't think there is. There must be something else, because there's some. So the guard who discovered that the tape was there, his name is Frank Wills, and he actually was in All the President's Men. And I thought that I remembered in this, there was somebody. No, you know what? I take it back. It's Forrest Gump, because in Forrest Gump, Forrest is the one who sees the lights on and calls security.
Right.
And then you hear security, Frank Wills, and he's go down and investigate those people with light. Okay, so Frank Wills has nothing to do with this. Never mind. But little known Watergate trivia: Frank Wills was the security guard who discovered all this. So
it's what you come here for.
Win your bar trivia night,
right?
By remembering Frank Wills.
Frank Wills.
But in this case, they taped the door so that they could get back in, and that's how like it's so delightful. So many things are just sewn up really tightly.
Yeah, but that's why I say, like, Forrest Gump, he goes throughout history, and he's got there's a whole nother thing going on there. But this is, like I was saying, such a hard sell to an audience.
Yes,
it's kind of a parody of All the President's Men, and also about how these two girls Forrest Gump Nixon. Yeah, and that just and that's probably more of why I never watched it. Like, just that doesn't compel me, because I hadn't seen All the President's Men, number one, so I would not have gotten it.
Yeah,
and this movie would have been significantly less entertaining having not seen All the President's Men.
Yes,
the stuff in the newsroom and the whole intro and
just if you don't have a good solid grounding in what happened in Watergate and who these people are, and then you appreciate the caricatures and the portrayals, like, without, you'd be like, why does that guy have that weird haircut that's flat on top? But when it's Haldeman, you're like, oh, that's
very specifically,
or Gordon Liddy's mustache or something. The last scene of the movie, Betsy and Arlene have discovered that Nixon is resigning. And they go home to one of their houses, and they cut up an American flag to make clothes, which makes me cringe.
They say, isn't this illegal? And
then they say, not if you sew it back together again. And I'm like, no, that's not.
Like, I don't even know, like, the legality of it aside. Like, it's definitely against the flag code.
It's frowned upon. Yeah,
right. It's definitely against the flag code.
Whatever. Yeah. So they make these very, like, mid-70s trippy, crop tops and bell bottoms and whatever. Yeah. And they paint a banner, and you see it and Nixon is flying his helicopter as he leaves the White House over their house, and you see the banner as he sees it, and it says, "You suck, Dick. You suck, Dick. Yep. Love, Deep Throat."
One of the many.
And it's jokes. Although when you see this on TV, it has to blur out that stuff.
Does it?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I think it blurs out. I think it blurs out both suck and dick, that's the joke. You might as well just cut out the last, and then he flips them off and they blur out that too. And I'm like, what is that? Okay.
Sure.
You're going to allow the whole plot line about Deep Throat, but not, right. But anyway.
Yeah.
True story. I thought for about 30 seconds about if I could put a banner on the roof of our house to say something rude to Trump for when he left. I have no guarantee that his flight path from DC to Florida went over our house. In fact, I'm sure it didn't.
Yeah.
But I would have had fun trying to get a banner up there.
Yeah. Anytime he was here and
that's true. We are close enough to the airport. So
it's a chance. I think I want to say southbound flights, or no, maybe it's westbound flights veer over near our house. So I don't know, but like I said, I thought
about it for about 30 seconds. And that was it. But speaking of the clothes, the clothes that were not made from flags,
right?
Betsy and Arlene have some fantastic outfits in this.
Yeah.
And I read on the Wikipedia page about this movie that all the wardrobe was genuine stuff from the 70s, and it was brand new stuff. It was in a warehouse somewhere.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't some costume designer's image of what they wore in the 70s. It was actually what they wore in the 70s. And some of it, I was like, that's really a little on the nose. Is that for real?
Right.
But apparently it was.
I love Bruce McCullough's very wide ties that he wears.
My gosh,
They're so wide.
Yes.
They're like, what's the thing that you wear? It's not an ascot, but sometimes with a suit, instead of a tie, they have like a little, I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know.
It reminded me of that.
Yeah. His hair in this is particularly excellent too. And the head toss.
It's great. His hair is great, but it's also a continuity nightmare.
Oh,
because there are tons of scenes where it's like, it's pointing out on the left side, and then they do a back and forth cut, and now it's smoothed. And I just imagine, because he's doing the head flips and stuff, I imagine that the continuity was just impossible to maintain, because it's this ridiculous wig. I mean, he's playing the Dustin Hoffman character, the one that Dustin Hoffman plays. So it's this ridiculous over the top wig. And then these super wide ties that are like too long. And
the combinations, like, and this is, I always think, I'm very conservative when it comes to combining patterns or stripes with or anything like that. And whenever I look at men and they have like a striped shirt and a plaid tie, I'm like, that's so daring. I could never do that. They are super over the top. Like, we're talking paisley on checks here. Like the ties and everybody in the movie has got crazy combinations, and it hurts my eyes. It's a good thing I'm not a man, because I would have solid on solid all the time, and it would be very boring.
Yeah. Yes. That's the only reason it's a good thing you're not a man.
Yes. That's really the only reason. Yes. One other, there is one wardrobe thing that I noticed that I take issue with. Ben Bradley, who was the editor of the Post at the time, has like a 20-second role in this. And whenever I think of him, I think of those, they've got a name and I don't remember what it is, but shirts where it's like a stripe on the body of the shirt and then the collar is white. Yeah. That's I everything I've seen him in, he's wearing those, and that actor is not. And I was like, that's such a gimme, but they missed it. Yeah. Apparently the producers tried to get Bradley to play himself in this, as well as John Dean, the White House counsel, who both, I mean, Dean gets a sympathetic edit, I guess, because he resigned before the shit hit the fan, and Bradley's in there for like 20 seconds. So I don't think it would have necessarily tarnished their image, but they both were like, nope. Hard pass. Yeah. I decline. So yeah, this is good fun. I would say it's more fun if you have seen All the President's Men and or you have a decent knowledge about Watergate. Yeah. Oh, totally. If you have none of those, well, I don't know. I make no promises, but you should still watch this, I think. Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. But yeah, I would say All the President's Men is required viewing before you watch this. It is much more enjoyable if you have seen it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So, and not necessarily like even right after, like, because it's been a couple weeks since we saw that, and you still got most of the jokes. Oh yeah. I mean, you don't have to watch them back to back. Yeah. So I was a little worried that you were not going to get it, and I was going to have to turn around and be like, "That's because in the movie, remember this." Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You're smarter than I give you credit for. I thank you. You're not dumb. Like, I'm no Jefferson Darcy. Right. Okay. Exactly. Thank you. I guess. Anyway, so that's Dick, everybody. Yeah, I don't think there's anything left to talk about. Yeah, I feel like because we're, as with All the President's Men, we are not doing a blow-by-blow of the plot, because you either know it or you don't. So yeah, like it's and then that's, comedy movies are always going to be a little bit interesting. Yeah, on this podcast format, because if we don't recount every funny joke, most comedy movies have a pretty thin plot and a pretty thin list of like fun facts and stuff. Yeah. So, but listen, folks, we would love to know what you think. For example, if you're of a different generation than we are, if you lived through this, or if you were born after us, what was your take on this. Is it funnier if you've seen All the President's Men versus not? I always like to ask, who would you cast in this if they made it today?
Yeah,
it's always funny. So let us know what you think. You can drop us a line. We're at both Twitter and Gmail, and our handle is the same for both. YSMY Podcast for You Show Me Yours podcast. So, tell us what you think about this, or, just tell us what you think of the podcast in general. That's fine. Feedback's great. Feedback's how you grow, really. It'll be like a performance review, except
more fun or less.
Maybe I don't know. Well, yeah, there's no pay raise with it. So
yeah. When you don't get paid, it's hard to raise your pay.
This is true. Anyway, drop us a line, email us, tweet at us. Slide into our DMs.
No. Don't.
Slide into your DMs. Is that specifically sexual? I don't know.
When you say it, it sounds that way. So
slide. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Just email us. That's all. Yeah. Really. So, and in the meantime, we have new episodes every other Wednesday. So if you would like to catch us on our next one, you can find us on most of the major podcast providers, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts and whatever you're listening to us on right now.
Yes.
So you can subscribe to make sure that you get the latest episode. And while you're there, if you could like and review us,
or whatever you can do on that platform.
Whatever. Yeah. Sure. Again, make us feel loved.
Yes,
really.
We are slowly growing. It would seem
very slowly, but yeah. And hey, also tell your friends about us.
Yeah. Speaking of the next episode, next time we're going to be watching, perhaps Bruce Willis's second best character that he has ever played, Corbin Dallas in Luc Besson's Fifth Element.
Who's the first one? Who's the first best character?
Who's the first best character that Bruce Willis played?
I'm assuming you mean the guy from Moonlighting.
Yeah. No, of course, it's John McClane.
Yeah, I figured.
But yeah, this movie's got Mila Jovovich in what was probably her breakout role. It's got Chris Tucker in definitely the best character he ever played.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Ruby Rod.
Is that where he says, "Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?" Okay.
Corbin, my man. Corbin, my man. He's going to say that a lot.
Okay.
Corbin, my man. He'll say that a lot. So just be ready for that.
I will get myself ready for that. So.
All right.
So we'll see you next time when we talk about The Fifth Element. And in the meantime, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io. Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowagowan.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple... Sorry, you got to say it once so that I can know it.
Where a married couple talks about the movies and TV that they loved before the first date.
Okay.